I never imagined a simple tea would spark a heartwarming connection that changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The kitchen was filled with chaos. The kettle shrieked like a banshee, its steam spiraling upwards, as I fumbled nervously. My hands trembled, and with every shake, my heart raced. Outside, the world blurred in a downpour, sheets of rain battered the windowpane. It felt like the sky was crying that I was just trying to brew a cup of chamomile, a remedy for the sleepless nights haunted by thoughts of what I had lost. My mom used to say that tea is the elixir of comfort. But on that day, it felt like the very essence of warmth had slipped through my fingers. Memories flooded my mind: the laughter at the dinner table, the warmth of her embrace, the way she always made sure I had my favorite mug. I felt hollow. It was as if each drop of water fell heavier than the last, stirring a tempest inside me. Then, the doorbell rang. I jumped, spilling water across the counter. My heart thudded. Who could it be? Choosing to ignore it, I returned to my thoughts, but the persistent ringing pulled me away. Hesitation clawed at me. Maybe it was just a delivery. Or someone selling something I didn't want to buy. But as I peeked through the peephole, my breath hitched in my throat. There stood a stranger. He looked drenched, his hair clinging to his forehead. Something about his presence felt electric, a stark contrast to my despair. I opened the door, a crack forming amid the stormy backdrop. "Can I help you?" I managed to stutter out, my voice barely a whisper. His eyes held a story, something heavy and burdensome, just like mine. "I saw you. Thought you might need this," he said, extending a warm thermos toward me. A smile broke through his concern, and for a moment, I caught a flicker of understanding between us. A shared connection. I hesitated. My heart flickered with hope and fear. Was it a kindness born out of pity? Or something more? I finally took the thermos, feeling its warmth seep through the cold barrier I had built around myself. My fingers brushed against his, and an impossibly electric connection sparked. The world outside faded away, the rain's rhythm echoed in my ears, and in that moment, the chaos inside seemed to still. He introduced himself as Leo, his voice husky from the damp air. We talked, standing there on my doorstep, sharing pieces of our lives like secrets. I learned he had lost someone too. The storm raged on around us, but we found refuge in our conversation, every word a brick laying a foundation against isolation. But just as I was beginning to feel that flicker of connection ignite into a flame, a loud crash echoed from the street, a car horn blaring in distress. It jolted me back to reality, the moment hanging by a thread. I turned back to Leo, and before I could speak, before I could ask what I truly wanted to know, he looked down, and I swear I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes. "Listen, I need to tell you something important." The air thickened with unspoken words, a truth hanging between us that felt too heavy to bear. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The storm persisted, creating a symphony of chaos outside as the world continued to unravel around us. But for a heartbeat, it felt like Leo and I were suspended in time, two souls adrift in our own ocean of grief. The warmth of the thermos in my hands reminded me of that fleeting connection, a flicker of light in the shadows that loomed over my heart. But then, reality crashed like the thunder beyond the door. Leo's anxious expression spoke volumes, and I felt a nagging sense of foreboding, the worry etching deeper lines into his brow. "What is it?" I asked, the words escaping my lips before I could summon the courage behind them. He shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting away to the storm. "I'm not sure how to say this." His voice trailed off, and I could almost feel the weight of the unsaid pressing against us like the humidity clinging to the air. "You seem familiar. Like, I might know you from somewhere." A chill crept down my spine. Familiar? Of all the coincidences in the universe, I was certain I had never laid eyes on him before. "That's impossible. I've never met you," I replied, but doubt knotted in my stomach like a twisted vine. Could he be talking about my past? Just as I prepared to dismiss his words, a flash of recognition coursed through me. A memory, fleeting but potent, a face, a name I had once known, now shrouded in shadows. My heart pounded in my chest as pieces of the puzzle tried to fit together, but every turn led to dead ends. I think I started, my voice quavering, but another loud crash shook the street, followed by a muffled shout. I saw Leo flinch, his brow furrowing deeper still. "I should check on that," he murmured, his eyes narrowing as they flicked past me toward the door. The moment was slipping away like sand through my fingers. Fear engulfed Menet just of the storm or the chaos outside, but of this connection fracturing before it had truly begun. "Wait, please," I cried, desperation spilling out as he moved to step past me. "You can't." Just his gaze softened for a brief moment before he turned back with urgency. "I know this might sound strange, but something feels wrong. I can't help but think I came here for a reason." I opened my mouth, ready to share what I felt, the inexplicable bond sparking between us, or the shadows of our pasts lingering just at the edges of our lives. Just as I was about to pour my heart out, he hesitated again. "I need to tell you something. It's about my sister." My chest tightened with an unexpected pang. "What about her?" I demanded, my heart racing. A name flickered in my mind like a candle flame, one I had not spoken in years, yet it burned brightly within me now. She went missing a few months ago," he said, voice cracking. "I think I've seen her, but I need to know for sure. I've searched everywhere, and I keep coming back to these moments. I need to tell you more, but I can't." Before he could finish, my heart took a turn down a long-abandoned path, a memory surfacing like a ghost. My chest constricted. "Leo, what's her name?" He hesitated, and I could see the battle raging in his mind. But there was something about the look in his eyes that threw me back to a resonating echo. "Rosie. Rosie Harper." Time froze, the air thickening with realization. Rosie had been my best friend once, the bright spark in my world before everything fell apart. We had lost touch when her family moved away. I stuttered. I knew her. She was my best friend. A shadow swept over Leo's face, realization and anxiety wrestling with one another. "What?" Before I could respond, the door swung open, and a gust of wind punctuated our revelation with a deafening roar. It felt as if the storm had decided to rage against us in that moment, spilling chaos into the burgeoning connection we had built against the tides of our suffering. "Rosie, where is she?" I gasped, fear clawing at my throat, the weight of our shared grief crashing over me like the waves outside. In the heart of the storm, we stood on the brink of a collapsing past, both desperately clinging to the remnants of what might have been. Just then, distant sirens wailed in the distance, and a sense of dread crept back into the corners of our hearts. "You and I, we have to find her," Leo whispered, determination flooding back into his voice despite the horror dawning upon us both. But I saw it then, the flicker of dread behind his eyes, the flicker I had felt so deeply within myself just moments before. We were two ships lost in the storm, and as I reached for him, the skies opened wider, and I realized that the answer to all our questions was about to break apart our fragile connection and lead us down a path we might not return from. The storm outside swelled with renewed fury. Rain lashed against the windows, and the world felt like it had been reduced to a haze of gray and chaos. Leo's demeanor had transformed in the span of moments. The young man who had offered his misplaced hope found himself ensnared in the claws of fear. His eyes widened, searching mine for answers that neither of us had. "Rosie," I breathed, the name manifesting like a specter, summoning forth images of laughter and carefree days, yet tainted with a heavy mantle of memories that bore the scars of loss. "You've been searching for her for months. What happened?" I wondered how such a vibrant spirit could just vanish into thin air, leaving deep grooves in heart still breaking from her absence. Leo's lips pressed into a thin line, his brow furrowing as he processed the urgency of this moment. She was at a party and then she just stopped responding. He took a deep breath, it's like she vanished. I keep thinking maybe someone saw her or that she's hiding. That maybe she just needed space, but his voice trailed off, the uncertainty heavy in the room that I clenched the thermos tightly, feeling the warmth seep into my fingers as I tried to ground myself. Together, we waded through our intertwined histories, drowning in uncertainty yet buoyed by the depths of familiarity. You must be worried senseless that I am, he said softly, vulnerability peeling back the layers of his stoic exterior. But it's not just that. I had this feeling that maybe Leo hesitated, glancing toward the door as if the storm could whisper the answers he sought. Maybe something connected us. I had hoped that if I found you, I would find her too. The air grew heavy, charged with unspoken words and unresolved pain. I took a step closer. We should find her together, I suggested, my heart pounding. It wasn't just a yearning to help an old friend, it was something deeper, a reckoning that bound us through shared anguish. I can reach out to some people, ask around. If there's anyone I know who might have seen her, do you think it's a coincidence? He looked straight into my eyes, seeking validation for the inexplicable connection we shared. My breath caught. Perhaps it wasn't mere coincidence, perhaps it was fate that had carefully spun our paths together in this dark hour. Just as I contemplated the tangled web of our destinies, a loud crash from the street made us jump. The chaos of the world outside seemed determined to shatter the fragile bond we had formed. I darted toward the window, peering through the curtain to the torrential downpour, heart racing as darkness flickered in the distancia. A flash of lightning illuminated a shadow stumbling at the edge of the road. Leo. Look! I exclaimed, gripping his arm to pull him closer. There it was, a figure struggling against the wind, drenched and unsteady. A flicker of something familiar washed over me, igniting an old, largely dormant instinct deep within me to reach out. That could be someone who knows her, or maybe even Rosie. Stay back, he cautioned, but instinct overwhelmed my sense of reason. Together we dashed toward the door, the storm an echoing backdrop to the urgency thrumming in our chests. As we stepped into the tumult, my heart pounded not just with fear but with a flickering hope that there might be a thread connecting us to Rosie, however tenuous. Leo and I pushed forward against the rain, desperation anchoring our strides. But as we crossed the threshold, reality came crashing down. An ominous figure revealed beneath the street lamp's spluttering glow, the face unmistakable. My breath hitched in my throat as the frayed edges of familiarity unfurled before me. It was Rosie, yet it wasn't the joyful spirit I remembered. Her eyes were glazed over with a mix of confusion and fear, and she staggered toward us as if caught between worlds. "Help me," she murmured, voice hoarse as she reached out, trembling. Leo's face paled, an unspoken acknowledgement sinking into the space between us. "Rosie?" he gasped, the whisper barely escaping his lips. My heart raced as realization set in, a tidal wave of emotions crashing over me. She needed us now more than ever, but the storm howled in response, a warning that echoed through the night. What had happened to her? What darkness had pulled her away? As I stepped toward her, that flicker of connection ignited once more, a moment of undeniable truth. We were all connected, bound by our love, our ties, and our suffering. But deep within the storm's fury lay shadows of treachery. No answers came. Only more questions loomed like clouds ready to unleash further chaos, the unknown trailing behind Rosie, dark and foreboding. Before I could reach her, another lightning strike lit up the sky, revealing a figure lurking in the shadows behind Rosie, a glinting object in the hand that sent a shiver of dread through me. I froze, the fragmented pieces of our fates hanging in the balance, the air cracking with a tension that promised danger. We were no longer adrift in the storm, we were right at the eye of a brewing tempest, and it was about to storm through our lives in ways we could never have imagined. As the last remnants of lightning faded into the night, casting an eerie silence over the relentless storm, fear enveloped me in a vice grip. Rosie stood swaying, her eyes pleading, but before I could take a step closer, the shadow lurking behind her surged forward, revealing a familiar face that made my blood run cold. It was Cole, Rosie's older brother. "What have you done?" Leo's voice broke the fragile stillness, his face pale, eyes flickering between Rosie and Cole. "Get away from her!" I shouted instinctively, but the words felt like flailing arms against an unseen current. Cole's expression was a mixture of rage and relief, his gaze darting between us before settling on Rosie with a protective fervor. "She isn't safe with you," he spat, his hold tightening around the glinting object, which I could now see was a knife, its blade ominously glistening under the rain-drenched streetlight. I said to leave her alone. "Cole, please." "You don't understand," I tried, but my voice faltered beneath the weight of his fury. "She's sick, and you've come to drag her back into your chaos." Cole's tone was frantic, but beneath that desperation was a raw, unfiltered fear. He advanced a step, forcing Rosie further into the shadows, and my heart clenched in response. "What are you talking about?" Leo stepped forward, arms raised in a placating gesture, desperate to bridge the chasm of misunderstanding. "We want to help her. No." Cole shouted, the word reverberating through the storm, and in that moment, his eyes dulled slightly, an ignoble agony flashing before they hardened once again. "The last time I let her go," his voice broke, the unanswerable pain plunging between each of us like a knife. It wasn't just a sister he shielded, but a fragile spirit whose light had been dimmed. My heart ached with the weight of that reality. Rosie wasn't just our friend, she was a beacon who had drawn us together, a bright flame dimmed by darkness. Rosie, however, seemed to regain some awareness, drawing a shaky breath. "Cole, stop," she rasped, her voice barely audible over the thundering rain. I chose to come back." Her gaze flickered desperately to Leo and then to me, searching for understanding. The tension crackled like static between the four of us, thickened by the swirling storm and the raw urgency of unwrought dangers. I took a step back, grounding myself in the reality that the situation was spiraling beyond my grasp. "We can help you, Rosie. Just tell us what happened," I urged, retreating into cautious empathy, but before she could respond, a choking sob escaped her lips. In that fractured moment, everything I had feared about the past came rushing to intertwine with the present. This wasn't just about a party gone wrong, it was a maze of complications, a web entangling each of us in ways I had yet to unravel, and Cole, bless him, saw only the shadows that danced around us. "Get back!" Cole shouted again, triumph and terror competing in his eyes. "You don't want to know what I had to do to keep her safe, keep her safe." Leo shouted back, disbelief pouring from him like rain. "What have you done, Cole? Do you even realize she is out here, freezing and lost?" Rosie's hands trembled at her sides, the weight of her brother's defense colliding with her desires. "I just needed to be free," she half whispered, a mixture of defiance and regret in her tone. I thought if I was away from everything, I could find myself again. I didn't want any of this." Off to the side, I could feel Leo's frustration simmering beneath the surface, a fire that mirrored my own increasing fear. The shadows were closing in, with Cole standing sentinel, shielding Rosie like a castle gate rather than a loving brother. "Rosie." I spoke again, my voice steadier this time, laced with an urgency that came from somewhere deep. "You have to trust us. Whatever happened, we can make sense of it together. You're not alone in this, you have a family still, even if it feels broken." Confusion flickered in her eyes, and for the briefest of moments, I saw the remnants of the girl who danced around campfires, who laughed freely under sunset skies. But just as quickly, it faded, replaced by the shadows of worry and vulnerability that had swallowed her whole. "I don't know who I am anymore," she admitted, her voice quaking like the storm around us. Cole stepped in front of her, a shield of flesh and blood against the battering rain. "If I let her go again," his voice cracked, brimming with an unnameable dread. "I can't lose her to the darkness." "Nobody is going to hurt her," Leo pleaded, stepping closer in an attempt to stand between the impending chaos. "But right now, you're only making things worse for her." I could feel the stakes rising, tension vibrating like the thunder overhead. We were all caught in this storm, Leo, Rosie, Cole, and I. Each with our fears and burdens weighing down our hearts. But as thunder rumbled, signaling the immense weight of the truth that still lay heavy in the air. I knew one thing: we were on the brink of a revelation, and it threatened to shake the very foundation of what bound us. Then, just as I caught sight of the pain in Rosie's eyes again, a sudden boom of thunder echoed through the streets, cutting through the heart of our confrontation. The world paused, holding its breath for what was to come. "Get back!" Cole screamed once more, and before I could comprehend, he lunged, knife brandished, fury illuminating his features. The storm intensified, cloaking us in the chaotic dance of danger and revelation, sending shockwaves of realization through my veins. This was no longer just an emotional rally for Rosie, this was a fight for survival, and the storm raged on, threatening to rip apart the very fabric of everything we held dear. The storm was relentless, each gust of wind howling like a wounded animal, and the pounding rain felt like 1,000 tiny fists beating against our souls. I stood frozen, anxiety gripping my heart like a vice, as Cole lunged, and time seemed to stretch endlessly in a moment poised on the edge of violence. "Cole!" I yelled again, my voice almost lost in the tumult. But even as the word left my lips, I sensed that something deeper was lurking in his fury. It wasn't just protection. There was a desperation, one that echoed my own fears about the irrevocable choices we had all made. "Stay back." His tears mingling with the rain created a haunting portrait of a brother terrified of losing his sister a second time. "I'll do it, I swear." His grip on the knife was shaking, the blade gleaming ominously beneath the flickering streetlight. Rosie's breath quickened, she seemed to shrink beneath the weight of her brother's anguish. "Cole, please, I need you to stop. This isn't the way." She reached out towards him, her small hand trembling. It was in that moment that I noticed a flicker of recognition pass through Cole's angry eyes, a small part of him that saw Rosie, not just as a sister, but also as a person desperately in need of understanding. "You don't know what I've seen," he shouted, the knife wavering in his grip, and I realized he was losing the fight against the tempest within himself. "Then let us see it together," Leo interjected, stepping forward despite the danger hanging unsteady in the air. "Whatever it is, we'll face it as one. Right now, what you're doing isn't protecting her. It's pushing her further into the darkness." The thunder roared louder, but within that chaos, a fragile thread began to weave its way through the moments. A sliver of hope surged within me, even under the weight of dread. I thought of the times Rosie had held our hands as we brewed tea beneath a canopy of stars, the warmth that curled around us like an embrace. "Cole," I said, my voice softer now, "you love her. We all do. But love doesn't mean control, it means understanding and support." His eyes flickered, and I could see the inner conflict crashing like waves against the shore. "But I've done terrible things to keep her safe," he whispered, almost to himself, an admission that chilled the air around us. "Tell us," I urged, breaking the dam of silence that had surrounded his truth. "We're right here, we're not going anywhere." Rosie shuddered, her voice steadied now. "Cole, please. We need to share this. You've been carrying it alone for too long." And then, like a dam bursting under pressure, he spoke. After the party, I was terrified, Rosie. I thought you'd be lost forever. I did things, dug up secrets about everything that happened that night. I thought I could control it all, keep you safe." His voice broke, anguish spilling from him like the rain. "I made deals, crossed lines I shouldn't have." "What kind of deals?" Leo interjected, his expression shifting from concern to confusion. Cole's eyes darted between us, revealing a new layer of fear. "I got involved with people I never should have. They made me do things, told me they could erase your pain if you became part of their world." Beneath the storm, the atmosphere shifted. Rosie's face paled as she clutched her arms, the weight of Cole's confession settling over us like an ominous shadow. "No," she whispered, disbelief mingled with horror. "What did you do, Cole?" "They needed a connection," he continued, desperation lacing his words. "A bond to keep the darkness at bay like the way you and I are bound. And all that chaos you brought into my life? I thought it was my fault you ended up like this, and I was going to fix it." "Cole, you can't fix everything," Rosie pleaded, her voice breaking. I didn't want to be part of your mess, or their mess. But you were, Rosie. You were dragged into it just like I was, he said, pained. I thought by locking it away, I'd shield you. I thought his gaze dropped to the ground, shadows creeping up his legs. A silence enveloped us, thick and suffocating. The storm roared around us, but within the chaos emerged an unexpected softness. I reached forward, cautiously, moving around the tension that gripped Cole. What if we face it together? Whatever it is that darkness you dealt with, we're here now. You don't have to protect her anymore, protect her. Cole's bitter laughter bubbled up, tinged with desperation. I'm the reason she's drowning. I shoved her into a world of despair, thinking it was for her own good. No. Rosie cried, stepping away from the wall of guilt he had erected. You loved me too much to see me, that's not your fault, Cole. Tears streamed down her face, her vulnerability cracking the wall she and her brother had built. And suddenly, there it was, a small flame igniting amongst the tumult. A revelation that whispered through the agony: they were both drowning, trapped in a storm of choices made in the name of love, but misdirected because of fear. But just as I dared to hope, there was a sudden crashing sound right beside us, a result of the raging storm, or perhaps something more sinister lurking in the shadows. A movement caught my eye, and I turned just in time to see a figure emerging through the downpour, their dark silhouette highlighted by the flashes of lightning. Cole. A voice shattered through the noise, rich with authority, clawing through our fragile moment. The air thickened, the tension snapped back painfully like a rubber band drawn to its limit. It was a face I never thought I would see, a ghost from a past that was supposed to remain buried. My breath hitched, recognition flooding through me as I realized who had come into our chaotic world. Enough of this. The figure's voice rang above the storm, and I knew, deep down, our journey was only just beginning, but the storm had brought forth uninvited chaos that would threaten to redefine everything we thought we knew. The storm clawed at the edges of our sanity, each lightning flash revealing our shared fears, but amidst the chaos, I felt a sharp focus on the figure standing amidst the Rhine, an unwelcome reminder of the threads binding us to a past we were desperate to escape. Samantha. Cole's voice trembled, a cautious uncertainty creasing his brow. His earlier bravado disappeared, replaced by a vulnerability that echoed Rosie's desperation. Surprised to see me? Samantha smirked, her eyes cutting through the darkness like a knife. You thought you could just erase the mistakes, didn't you? Run, hide, and pretend none of this ever happened. Stay away from my brother. Rosie interjected, stepping protectively in front of Cole, as if thwarting the dark specter of their shared past. Yet her stance felt as flimsy as the raindrops cascading around us, desperate but ineffective. I stepped closer, a quiet resolve building in me, instinctively feeling the need to shield Rosie from the tempest that had been unleashed. What do you want, Samantha? She chuckled, the sound discordant against the howling wind. Oh, darling, you don't even know the half of it. Cole and Rosie thought they could outrun their shadows, but they're coming back, whether they like it or not. With that declaration, a soaked wind surged through the alley, carrying the scent of wet pavement mingled with something far darker, a trace of old memories, bitter with regret and secrets. I could feel Cole flinch beside me, his body coiling with tensions too raw to express, while Rosie's eyes flickered with palpable dread. What do you mean? I probed, trying to hold on to the threads of control as dread settled into my stomach. Samantha stepped closer, her movements almost serpentine in the way her intent wrapped around us. You truly don't understand the power of the choices you all made that night, do you? It wasn't just a party, it was the beginning of the end for all of you. Her gaze lingered on Cole, taunting, shut up. He shot back, anger breaking his reverberating fear. You don't know what you're talking about, don't I? She challenged, piercing him with a glare that could curdle milk. You think I'm the only one who knows about the darkness that night? There are others, those who wouldn't hesitate to snuff out anyone who got too close to the truth. We can face them together, I suggested, my voice steadying me as much as it was intended for them. That's what we were talking about, right? Understanding, facing the darkness. "Oh, sweetheart," Samantha exclaimed mockingly, "you don't quite grasp the scope of what you're dealing with. Some darkness can't be faced as one. It changes you, festers, and ultimately drives you apart." The air grew heavy with her words, hanging like the thick fog rolling in from the storm. I glanced cautiously at Cole, whose face was a storm of emotions, a mix of determination and horror. Rosie's hand found his, squeezing tightly, a silent pledge of solidarity even as uncertainty danced in the raindrops around us. "Listen to me. Whatever happened that night, whatever darkness you think remains, we can confront it," I pressed. "You don't have to keep living in fear." "Fear? Oh, honey, this isn't fear," Samantha retorted. "This is survival. You really think you can just confront people like me and live to tell the tale? I have a challenge for you. Challenge your own courage, see if you dare to bring the darkness into the light." "Stop!" Rosie cried, the words pouring from a heart battered but unyielding. "We don't want this. We're not running, we just want to heal." But in a swift, jarring motion, Samantha brandished something from her jacket, gleaming metal that caught the flash of lightning like a predator's eye. A familiar shape emerged, and my heart plummeted as I recognized it. It was a pendant, a silver charm I had seen on someone else's neck that night, the night everything had unraveled, a piece of evidence that the past was clawing its way into our present. "You're going to need this, Cole," she said, tossing it carelessly towards him. He instinctively ducked, the charm hitting the ground with a deadly clink before rolling to a halt in the mud. But that sound resonated with a deep gravity that sent chills racing down my spine. It wasn't merely a charm. It was a record of choices, the choices that had ensnared Cole in webs of desperation and secrets. "Why now? What do you want?" I hissed, panic lending urgency to my voice. "Now?" Samantha repeated, eyes glinting with malice. "Because the game is afoot, darling. The past has awakened, and you'll all be drawn back into its embrace, whether you like it or not. Time to face the truth." And just like that, as thunder crackled and struck once more, the ground beneath us felt shifted. The weight of Samantha's words hovered like a storm in our hearts and minds, declarations laden with past wounds that threatened to split open even further. "Cole," Rosie whispered, fear and resolve intertwining in her voice, "we're in this together, right?" "We can't let her win." "Together," he echoed, but the uncertainty in his eyes betrayed the ferocity of his claim. But the looming question remained, could united strength withstand the dark shadows threatening to pull us apart? I glanced at the pendant now sinking into the mud and felt an inexplicable chill creep beneath my skin, knowing that our real battle was just beginning. And from the shadows, I sensed more than Samantha's games. Something deeper, darker, was re-emerging, something we could never prepare for. The air was thick with unease, the remnants of Samantha's presence hanging like an ominous fog, refusing to dissipate even after she'd vanished into the relentless downpour. The three of us stood in a trembling circle of anxiety, the chaos of the storm reflecting the tempest inside us. Cole's jaw was clenched, his entire body shaking with a mix of anger and fear that had become all too familiar. Rosie, though visibly shaken, held steadfast. "We can't let her manipulate us," she said, squeezing Cole's hand as if infusing him with some of her unwavering spirit. "We have each other. That has to be enough." I wanted to believe her because everything about the moment screamed of turmoil and despair. However, doubt gnawed at my heart. It was like standing at the edge of a dark abyss, staring into the unknown. I had never even caught a glimpse of what lay beneath our shared past, but I knew it was far more intricate than any of us wanted to accept. "Cole, what was that charm?" I asked, the urgency in my voice barely cloaking the fear that bubbled just below the surface. He stuttered, wrestling with the ghosts even as he fought to keep his composure. "It belonged to Lisa." The name hit us like a brick. Lisa. The reason behind so many broken hearts and fractured memories. The girl whose fate had become intertwined with our own and yet remained shrouded in a veil of questions. Rosie paled, her grip tightening around Cole's hand. She's the one who died." "Yes," Cole finished for her, his voice cracking under the weight of the truth. "That night was everything. It ended her life and turned ours into shadows. The rain continued to fall as if mourning for lost time, each drop echoing the ache of unspoken words and unfinished stories. I could see the anguish swirling behind Cole's eyes, the burden of guilt he carried like a heavy cloak, the knotting of relationships that had frayed too far. Maybe if we talked to I began, but Rosie abruptly cut me off. No. Talking won't bring her back. It's just a reminder of our failures, of everything we lost. Her words were filled with raw anguish, and I could see how deeply the weight of the past pressed upon her fragile psyche. Then what are we supposed to do? I pleaded. We can't let Samantha dictate how we handle this. We owe it to ourselves to confront what happened. Confronting it means bringing everyone back into this, Cole said, his tone filled with resistance. Even those who hurt us. The notion of facing the past terrified me, but I sensed an undeniable current of truth buried within. Ignoring it would only suffocate us under layers of regret and fear. But if we don't face it, if we continue to run, isn't that letting Samantha win? Rosie turned to me, her expression softening just a fraction. You're right. But gathering everyone, facing them, it feels like opening a wound that never healed. The past cannot be buried forever, I echoed softly but firmly. If we don't deal with it now, we risk losing our future. Just then, as if the universe conspired against us, a sudden flash of lightning illuminated the alley, striking a remaining flicker of hope within me. That's when I noticed something glimmering not far from where Samantha had scattered the pendant. Look! I exclaimed, moving closer. As I knelt to pick it up, the rain parted momentarily, revealing an ornate silver key. It was delicate and striking, intricately crafted with patterns spiraling into each author, a stark contrast to the chaos around us. It felt oddly warm against my palm, as if it held a secret waiting to be unveiled. What is that? Rosie asked, her voice heavy with a mix of curiosity and dread. That I don't know, I admitted, my fingertips tracing its surface. But it feels important. Before any of us could consider its meaning, Cole's phone buzzed violently in his pocket, breaking the tenuous silence. He pulled it out, his eyes widening as he read the message. It's from Samantha. I suggest you prepare for a reunion. Secrets are waiting to be unlocked. Don't forget to bring the KEY.MY. Heart raced. The key. Was this what Samantha had intended all along? A forced gathering of ghosts from our past? What does that mean? I asked, though dread consumed me. I don't know, Cole stammered, fingers trembling over the phone screen. But we have to find out, Rosie gasped quietly, eyes darting around the empty alleys as if expecting shadows to rise and envelop us. We can't do this alone. If we're going to face them, we need to talk to those closest to us, starting with Max. I echoed, memories flooding back of laughter and reckless decisions. The brother of Lisa. Did he even know the truth? Yes, Cole said firmly, dread mingling with a growing sense of purpose. If we're going to unlock these secrets, we need to start with talking to him. But with that recollection brought forth a chilling reminder. Would he even want to hear our version of the story? The rain poured down in torrents, washing away the remnants of Samantha's taunting presence, yet somehow, the sense of dread it carried had left a deeper mark. The truth awaited, cloaked in shadows, as we stood on the precipice of reliving our worst nightmares. With a glance towards Rosie, I knew the stakes had never been higher. Together, she reassured us once more. We can do this. A shiver ran through me, an echo of uncertain hope. We had yet to find out what lay ahead, but I sensed the road would be steep. As we turned to navigate the wet streets, the key felt heavy in my pocket, a physical reminder of choices not yet made as we stepped toward the inevitable confrontation that loomed close. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was also a beacon of light, a flicker that could guide us through the dark alleys of our past, if only we had the courage to face it. The following days blurred into a series of muted colors painted with anxiety and whispered fears, each moment a countdown to an inevitable confrontation. My fingers grazed the key often, its intricate design a constant reminder of the tangled past that we were on the cusp of uncovering. I avoided looking too closely at the implications, deflecting the turmoil within me by focusing on logistics. A text here, a call there, all trailing back to one name: Max. He had retreated into the shadows of our shared history, buried under layers of grief and anger, and the thought of facing him terrified me. Yet as much as I dreaded it, I felt a pull, a flicker of hope urging me forward. Tomorrow, then? Rosie's voice broke through my thoughts as she paced the living room, her reactions both frantic and more determined than ever. Her eyes sparkled with fear and resolve, dancing like the flickering candlelight casting shadows on the walls. I nodded, though unease gripped my heart. Yes. We can't put it off any longer. Cole stood by the window, staring out into the pouring rain, a ghost of indecision hovering at the edges of their determination. What if he doesn't want to see us? What if he doesn't even care to hear our side of the story? What if he does? Rosie countered, her voice fiercer, challenging, even. We owe it to him to try. He deserves to know that Lisa was more than just a tragic outcome. She was our friend. Our family. That truth hung heavy in the air, fraught with unspoken words. I felt the gravity of our choices reminding me that the past can't be sanitized. No amount of time could alter the hurt caused, couldn't unring the bell that had sounded that fateful night. Yet perhaps, through that acknowledgement, we could find a sort of catharsis, even forgiveness in each other. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that the key would unlock more than just forgotten memories, it could also unleash the pain that had shackled us for so long. I wondered if any of us were ready for what this reunion might stir. Morning arrived with an unsettling calm, the clouds breaking just enough to let pale sunlight spill into the world. It cast a hesitant warmth that barely touched the worry in my chest. We had agreed to meet Max at a small café, an inauspicious place, but one filled with ghosts of laughter shared over cups of tea and spilt secrets. As we approached the café, my heart beat a staccato of anticipation, each pulse echoing the need for resolution. I looked around at Rosie and Cole, seeing all the uncertainty etched on their faces as if they wore their fears like badges, but just as we stepped over the threshold of the café, the door chimed a lonely sound that felt like a reluctant call, a vintage bell reminding us of the history we were about to delve into. My stomach twisted as we spotted Max sitting at a corner table beneath a faded photograph of a band we used to love, his head bowed over a steaming cup, the weight of his solitude palpable even from a distance. Here goes nothing, Cole muttered under his breath, bravado warring with apprehension. Rosie squeezed my hand gently in solidarity, her touch grounding me as we approached the table. Max looked up as we approached, his expression shifting from curiosity to disbelief, then settling into a tension that was hard to parse. What are you doing here? He asked, his voice low, seasoned with cold edges that cut through the frail warmth of the café. Max, I began, faltering as the memories of laughter tinged with sorrow rushed past. We need to talk. About Lisa. Before I could say more, his face hardened. Don't. Just don't, he snapped, the pain in his voice amplified by the clattering sound of silverware mingling with hushed voices around us. I don't want to hear your excuses. I don't want to relive what happened. Please, Rosie interjected, her voice firm yet gentle. We need to explain. We owe it to you and to her. The name hung in the air, demanding attention as his gaze flickered between us, a storm brewing behind his eyes. You think understanding will change anything? She's gone. You can't bring her back. None of this matters. Max, please listen, Cole said with surprising calmness, stepping forward. We didn't mean to hurt her. None of us did. But ignoring what happened won't make the truth any less real. Max's fingers tightened around his cup almost violently. So, you think you can come here and somehow make things right? You have no idea what her loss has done to me. To us. With my heart racing, I pulled the key from my pocket, laying it on the table with deliberate care. This is what Samantha wanted. She's playing with us, but we believe it can lead us to answers. To a chance for closure. Max frowned, his brow furrowing in confusion and suspicion as his gaze locked onto the key. What do you mean? What do you think that can unlock? But before I could answer, the cafe door swung open with an abruptness that shattered the fragile bubble of our confrontation, and a familiar figure stepped inside. The air seemed to thicken instantly. It carried with it the undertow of unresolved ties that tugged through our hearts. Samantha, her entrance marked a jarring shift, a stark reminder that we weren't alone in our journey through this labyrinth of memories. A whirlwind of emotions gripped me, as realization dawned that this meeting was just the beginning. "Looks like we're all ready for a reunion," she said, her voice dripping with a predatory sweetness. "I hope you brought the key." In the eye of the storm, everything felt more precarious than ever before. The walls began to close in, and I held my breath, feeling the weight of doubt settle heavily on my chest, threatening to drown the fragile bond that we had begun to rebuild. The tension in the cafe thickened like syrup on a winter's day, the air electric with possibilities and discomfort. My heartbeat resonated in my ears, drowning out the murmurs of patrons, the clinking of cups, the laughter that seemed to come from another universe entirely. I stared at Samantha, her presence a vivid reminder of the tangled web before us. "Why are you here?" I managed to voice, though it barely rose above a whisper. Samantha's lips curled into a slight smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd join the reunion. You all seem busy." She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, exuding an air of nonchalance that belied the chaos swirling beneath the surface. Max shot me an incredulous look, and I could see the walls of his resolve crumbling, the flicker of anger igniting in his eyes. "You wanted to play games." "We're not doing this," he snapped, evidently trying to shoo her away like a bothersome fly. But Samantha took a step closer, her gaze sharp. "And what if I told you I hold the other half of this key? What if I know things that you don't?" Her voice dipped an octave, pressing cold fingers into the warmth of the moment, creating fissures of uncertainty amongst us. "What do you mean?" Cole asked. His expression, usually a bastion of confidence, faltered, revealing a layer of vulnerability he usually masked. She chuckled softly, chaos embedded within the laugh. "The truth, my dear companions, is often found where you least expect it. Or rather, where you refuse to look." Her smirk widened as she relished the slightest crack in our defenses, coaxing out the unyielding hurt we had cloaked beneath bravado. "This isn't a game." Max's frustration ignited again, and I felt the bubble of tension continue to swell as voices knitted untidy threads of confrontation. "Maybe not for you, but it certainly is for me," Samantha replied, her tone chilling. "Tell me, have you considered how your decisions have replayed over and over in a different light? That maybe not everyone is as innocent as you'd like to believe." "What are you talking about?" My desperation clawed at my throat. I wanted to rip the facade from her face, expose whatever twisted game she was playing. As Samantha opened her mouth, poised to spill some tantalizing secret, a plate shattered behind her, fragments scattering across the floor like lost dreams. My head snapped towards the sound, and for the briefest of moments, the unexpected chaos granted me an opportunity to refocus. A waitress scurried over to clean the mess, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. For a moment, her gaze met mine, and there was something unspoken in those eyes, a glimpse of kinship in a world steeped in grief and lost connections. I felt a resonance there, a tiny flicker of understanding amidst the storm. Samantha, undeterred by the disruption, continued, "You see, none of you are innocent. And Lisa? She had her secrets too. You think you knew her, but you only scratched the surface." Max shook his head in disbelief. "Stop. Just stop." Rosie stepped forward, her brow furrowed with determination. "You don't get to twist her memory like that. We're here because we want to understand, because we want to honor her." "Honor her?" Samantha repeated, eyes gleaming mockingly. "You mean pretend like she didn't have a darker side, twist your little memories to suit your narrative? You face little truths, but the bigger ones scare you, don't they? Maybe it's about time you faced your truth too," I found myself saying, unsure where my own courage had suddenly blossomed from. "Instead of playing the puppet master, trying to control what we think of her." Lisa's struggles were her own, not a weapon. Samantha's expression flickered, surprise transforming to annoyance. Cute. But tread carefully, darling. The truth may not set you free. Sometimes, it binds you. Max was silent, his face a mix of anguish and contemplation. It was clear that her taunt struck deeper than any of us could bear. In that silence, with everything hanging in the balance, I reached for the key, tracing its edges with my fingers. The warmth of it soothed me, a reminder that there was more to discover, more to fight for. The idea popped into my head: what if the real unlock wasn't just a key for a door, but a key to understanding ourselves and the web of connections binding us? Then, just as my resolve started to form, I saw a flicker of movement from the corner of my eye. Outside the café window, a man loitered, peering through the glass. He wore a hood which shadowed his face, but there was something hauntingly familiar about him. My breath hitched as he caught my eye and leaned closer, urgency written all over him. As I opened my mouth to shout, the door swung open, and the bell rang again, this time with an urgency that echoed in my bones. I could feel the atmosphere shift, like the tide pulling away, revealing not just the truths we needed to confront but a tide of new unknowns. "Who is that?" I heard Rosie ask quietly, her voice dripping with a mix of curiosity and dread. With nerves coursing through me, I turned back to the figure outside just as he lifted his hood, unveiling a face I never expected to see again, the face of someone who held a piece of our shared history like a secret. The café faded around me, as I braced for the possibilities his arrival might unfurl, suddenly aware that the questions we thought needed answers were only the beginning of a much larger story, one I hadn't anticipated. Then, before I could catch my breath, the man stepped through the threshold, and I knew without a doubt that everything would change from this moment forward. The moment he stepped into the café, the atmosphere shifted dramatically, as though the air was pregnant with memories. My heart raced. It was Max's brother, Nathan. His presence pulled me straight back into our intertwined past, a collage of laughter, love, and sharp-edged sorrow. Nathan's eyes, which once sparkled with mischief, now bore the weight of years spent navigating a world shadowed by loss. "Nathan?" Cole murmured, anxiety etched across his face. I could see how deeply this moment resonated with him, a visceral connection stretching back to the days that seemed forever lost in time. "Is this a reunion?" Nathan asked, his voice gravelly, eyes darting between us like a bird searching for shelter in a storm. "I heard whispers about Lisa. I need to know what happened." We want to tell you," I said carefully, gauging the tension pulsating in the room. Rosie stepped closer to Nathan, her hand instinctively reaching for his. "We've all been struggling to understand her loss. But we need to confront the truth together." "Truth?" Samantha sneered, her amusement palpable. "How quaint. Do you really think it's that easy? You're children playing games in a dark world." Ignoring her, I felt a rush of determination mingle with the thrill of renewed hope as I gestured towards Nathan. "The key," I said, laying it back on the table. "It was meant to unlock something deeper. Perhaps more than just memories, but understanding." That he looked at it, confusion mirrored on his face. "What does it mean?" "The key is tied to all of us, Nathan," Cole explained, his voice steadier now, a stark contrast to the chaos that had filled this moment before. "We believe it leads to where things went wrong, where we lost Lisa and ourselves along the way." Samantha rolled her eyes, clearly unimpressed, but didn't interject, the smirk replaced with a subtle intrigue as curiosity took over. "Do you really think you can face the darkness and find closure?" Nathan's brow furrowed, his vulnerability exposed. "It's not just about closure," I interjected, voice steadying. "It's about acknowledging everything, the light and the shadows that make us whole. We owe it to Lisa, to each other." The weight of silence hung over us, laden with expectations and fears. I watched the emotions flicker across Nathan's face, the flickers mirrored in Cole and Rosie's eyes, revealing an unsettling alignment in our shared grief. In that singular moment, while trapped in a storm that raged outside and reeked of turmoil, the realization hit me like a lightning bolt: we were standing at the brink of not just confronting our past, but at the threshold of redefining our futures. As the world outside raged on, we had the power to finally break free from its clutches. Samantha's laughter pierced through once more, low and dangerous. Do you think the past will graciously reveal its treasures? Good luck digging. Sometimes it's buried too deep. Then let's dig together, Rosie replied, determination radiating from her. Whatever it takes. Nathan took a moment to gather himself before looking back at the two of us. If we're doing this, if we're actually facing it, if we're brave enough to confront our darkness, we can't let it consume us like it did before. The fragile bond of unity began to coalesce between us, roots growing stronger even as uncertainty trembled in the air. Slowly, Nathan took the key from the table, holding it protectively between us. Let's unlock the truth together then. With that, the atmosphere shifted yet again. The shadows that had lingered began to recede slightly beneath the flickering light as Nathan turned toward the cafe door. Will you all come with me? I need to show you something. It's about Lisa. A place where we can finally confront what happened that night, a place I should have taken you to long ago. The determination in his voice ignited a spark within me, and I exchanged looks with Rosie and Cole. It was instinctive. We nodded, understanding this was our moment of reckoning. We stepped out into the cool air, the rain easing to a drizzle as the world around us shifted from shadow to light, from uncertainty to resolve. We followed Nathan like a stream converging into a river, directed toward what felt like a long-lost reclamation of connection and clarity. I sensed we were weaving through a tapestry, not just of our collective history but of pain, loss, and perhaps, eventually, forgiveness. Each step away from the cafe felt like peeling back layers of grief that had settled on our hearts, a cathartic journey that would bring closure to sorrows, while revealing deeper bonds. On the path to the place where it had all changed, that night echoed within us, but now resided in the shadows of our past, waiting to be acknowledged rather than feared. With each step, new strength emerged, blossoming as though a heart long bereft of hope found the will to beat again. And as Nathan led us toward the truth hidden beneath familiar, forgotten streets, I realized we were rising not just to confront what haunted us, but to reclaim our own stories, one where lost souls could finally find each other again amid the chaos of life and the storms that raged. As we stood on the precipice of our past, ready to peer into the abyss together, a rush of warmth washed over me. I felt in that tidal moment of clarity the whispers of hope, and I couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps the deepest connection was yet to unfold, a realization that after all the storms, the real magic lay in our willingness to rediscover love and shared light, all twined in the fabric of our truth. And with that revelation, I squared my shoulders and whispered into the silence, together, we'll rewrite the story. In that moment, beneath the converging hues of dawn breaking through, I knew we would not just unlock the door of our tragic past, but pave the way to create futures brightened by resilience, empathy, and an unbreakable bond of friendship, a connection we could cherish and carry through whatever storms lay ahead, echoes of laughter mingling with the warmth of tea shared beneath twinkling stars.